Hello, Joe. This is Tim Rivers with the J6 News, and I'm speaking with Joseph McBride, who is the return attorney from the New York area who has been supporting many of the J6 defendants. And you've probably seen him on national news. He's been making a lot of splash in his defensive practice. And we're going to talk a little bit about what his work means for the folks that are still incarcerated in DC, and hopefully what the future holds for them and for our justice system. Joe, thanks again for having the time to sit with us. I know you're everywhere today. The first question, I'd just like to get a little background for folks that are listening. Can you tell me a little bit about what motivated you to work with the defense of J6 prisoners? I know your firm is now supporting multiple ones. Can you give me just a little background about what brought you into this fight?
Sure thing. So Tim, first and foremost, let me say thank you for having me on the show. And thank you for all of the good work and that you've been doing, and for continuing to raise awareness around this very important fight and the multitude of very important issues that go along with it. So thank you very much from me to you.
Thank you.
Now, with regard to why I got involved in this fight, I mean, it's sort of it's a bit of an onion. But, you know, you peel back a few layers and you'll see that law is a legal, my legal practice is a second career for me. I became an attorney because I have two brothers, one adopted brother, one brother by blood. My adopted brother is learning disabled and has some mental issues, diagnosed. To make a long story short, he was accused of a crime that he did not commit. He was tricked into signing a very bad plea deal. He was threatened with 125 years of incarceration for something that he absolutely did not do. And because he is, diagnosed with a few different things, and one of his diagnoses is a schizophrenia. He's paranoid schizophrenic. He didn't have the right type of counsel. He didn't have the right type of psychological people around with him to make that decision. And he certainly made it outside of the decision and advice of his family. We didn't even know what was going on. One day we just found out that he got sentenced to 15 years in jail, and we all showed up at his sentencing, and there he was getting dragged away. So I come from a good Christian family. We're from the Northeast, so my family's Catholic. We're practicing Catholics, and my mom and dad had about 24 kids come through the home growing up because they wanted to give back out of the little that we had. And we adopted Anthony, and then watching my mom and dad, watching their hearts break and watching them just be absolutely had their souls crushed, and still maintain their faith in our country, and still maintain their faith in Jesus Christ, and still not lose hope. It just motivated me to the point where I said, hey, you got to get off the sideline and you got to do something. So I wrote my brother a letter that night, and I said, Anthony, your sentence is 15 years in jail. I hope I can become a lawyer in half that time. I'm going to drop what I'm doing, go to college and then law school, and become a lawyer to see if I can get you out. And so the next day I set that plan in motion, and that is how I stand before you today. And I've made my career out of fighting back against the government that, I love my country and I distrust this government. And it's healthy to distrust the government. Our founding fathers often called the government a necessary evil, and they often warned against the danger of unchecked power. And so my career has been made in respect in terms of fighting for people who have been unjustly accused or wrongfully accused, or in situations where people have done something wrong and the full prosecutorial apparatus of the government comes down upon them. I don't like that on a visceral level. I believe that my faith in Jesus Christ compels me to stand in the gap for people who are forced to deal with these things. I mean, Jesus Christ is the most famous wrongful convicted person of all time. And, when I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was in prison, did you come and visit? These things speak to my heart. These are the reasons why I chose to become a criminal defense attorney. And then after I seen what happened with January 6th and the way that people were treated afterwards, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. So, I had a conversation with myself, with God, with my family. I said, do I really want to get involved in this? It's going to cause, I live in the Communist Republic of New York City. I'm not exactly going to make friends when I do this. But I felt that, that Jesus told me to do it. So I stepped up, I stepped in, and I'm a very all or nothing guy. I mean, you get all of me or you get none of me, for better or worse. So that's how I arrived where I am today. I started with the case of Richard Barnett. I now represent Christopher Quaglin. I represent Ryan Nichols. I represent Daniel Goodwin. I recently picked up the case of Victoria White. And well, I'm going to do my best, as best as I can, to make sure that true justice is served in each and every one of those cases.
Well, Joe, that kind of passion is missing, unfortunately, from the legal profession today, which seems to have become just a monetary concern. I don't want to put all attorneys in that box, but the dearth of the large law firms in this country who could really jump in here and help has been deafening, is all I can say. And so when you see somebody with the passion that you have in your background jumping into this fight head first, and literally we are pitching our stones against giants here, it's incredibly inspiring, and it makes me want to work harder. With everything that you've seen, there's a huge obstacle to getting these guys released on a normal bail in a reasonable amount of time. And the government is bringing all kinds of crazy claims to the forefront, that they're violent, they're threats for flight, that they can't be trusted in the community. And in many cases, this couldn't be further from the truth. What is the biggest obstruction that we're having in trying to get these guys released on bail so that they can be treated like any other person in this country who's awaiting trial?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think I can best answer it in two parts. Part one, let me start with part two. Part two is, look, the January 6ers, the vast majority of these guys and gals, and most of them are guys, are, your run-of-the-mill, shirt off your back, true blue collar, red, white, and blue American who loves their country, who loves their God, who loves their family, and who thought that the election was a sham. And they showed up at the Capitol to petition the government for redress of grievances, as is protected and covered by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. A fair amount of these people got caught up in the greater events of that day, and they have subsequently been charged. Now, probably every one of those people at this point, 95% of those people, if not all of them, should be home. When you look at the Bail Reform Act, and the Bail Reform Act says that you have to be, one, a flight risk, or two, dangerous. If you're not flight risk and or dangerous as a matter of law, then you should be released. These guys aren't flight risk. They're just not. The vast majority of them are not flight risk. And secondly, these guys are not dangerous. Not only do you have to be proven dangerous under the law, you have to be proven dangerous, and under the January 6 cases that have come out, especially the U.S. v. Munchell case and the Tanios case, the law now says that there has to be a future, clear, and specific threat. You have to articulate a clear future threat that this person, you can say, look, person's J6 or number 12, if he's released, he's going to go out and do this act. He's going to go out and do this thing. This is his clear threat. If you can't articulate that, then that person should go home. Some of these judges are I don't want to comment on the judges.
No,
because
it's not fair.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. But some of these lawyers, some of them are doing their jobs, other of them don't know the law, and lots of them aren't willing to step up because of the political reasons. There's that, and there is also the very real reality that the Biden administration and the January 6th Commission has poisoned the jury pool, has poisoned the public consciousness by proffering to them via the mainstream media, which is a propaganda arm of the Biden administration, the narrative to the public that these people are Trump-supporting simpletons with no education, be it formal education or real-world education, which is far more valuable than their formal education. They can't think for themselves. They're incapable of being normal people in society. They are inherently dangerous, on the road to domestic terrorists and or are domestic terrorists and or are insurrectionists. You see the media using chopped up, edited videos that depict January 6th in the worst possible light. They're not being given the presumption of release. They're not being really given the presumption of innocence. And because of that, they're being held in jail. It's unfair, it's immoral, it's unconstitutional, and it's wrong. The other thing I want to say is this. You know, in your question to me, you mentioned the fact that how can they be treated like other people? And inherent in the meaning of that question is, look, these people are good people, they're human beings, and they're being railroaded by a system that hates them. This is an important moment in our public consciousness, especially for people who are right of center, to realize, to come to grips with this reality. This is one of the things, if not the primary thing, that Black and Latino communities in America have been saying for a long time. The criminal justice system has treated them unfairly for a long period of time, and they are often, the government lies, the government plants evidence, the government gets in front of a court and says these damning things in front of people who, in front of jurors who would never believe that the government would lie. But this has been happening to them for a long time. This is why groups like Black Lives Matter had traction. Now, do I agree with Black Lives Matter? Do I think it's a good organization? No, I do not. I think it's a terrible organization. But do I agree with the message behind Black Lives Matter, that Black and Latino people in this country and other people of color and poor people have been getting railroaded for a long time? Yes, I do. And I say that to say this, that our community, the January 6th community, and the extended group of families has more in common with the Black and Latino community than it possibly could imagine at this point. It is the people up top. It's the elites. It's the Mitch McConnells and the Nancy Pelosi's of this country who want us to be fighting against each other when we should no longer be doing that, because that system that's been crushing them for this long is now crushing your blue collar Americans for unjustifiable reasons. And I urge people, when they pray, to pray for a unification of these two forces, because if these two forces can unite, then the people who are currently controlling our government no longer have a chance to control it. I know I just went off on a bit of a tangent there, but it's real important for people to understand this message, because the people who are up top, this elite political class of people who are super rich and super wealthy and super powerful, are controlling everything. That is not a conspiracy. That is a fact. And it's so long as people can step back and see that and see who your true brothers and sisters are in this fight, then this could possibly be a watershed moment in the way that the criminal justice system advances past this point.
Yes, the narrative has truly been divisive and trying to pit, American against American in every different category that we can think of. And so you're right. And when I see judges finally beginning to wake up, and I just saw one in the Refit case who argued there's a statute 1516. It's about obstruction of a public
1512, yeah.
Yeah, but there's two of them, and one of them says you just disrupted it because you just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The other one says you corruptly disrupted it. In other words, intentional, like maybe the difference between murder and manslaughter. The difference in penalties is vast, and the prosecution is always attempting to push the harder narrative to punish people for trespassing with 20 years in prison. I guess that's one of the reasons that you have been picking up more and more defendants. And my next question would be, how much can your team physically handle, and what is the limits of our ability to take the discovery from all these different fellows that you're working with and put it to good use for all of the defendants?
Sure. So in terms of my team, how it's currently structured right now, we're at capacity in terms of what we can handle. I want to be able to take on more cases, but I would have to hire more people, and maybe that will happen in order to do this. We certainly have a vision that we're executing. We have a unified vision amongst the clients that we represent, and we believe that it is a sound one. In terms of collaborating with other lawyers, there is a cohort of lawyers on the private bar who we are collaborating with. Paul Kamenar is one of them. Paul and I took Ali Alexander before the January 6th Commission yesterday. That's a separate issue. Paul's been with me on all these January 6th cases. You have Stephen Metcalf. You have John Kianaga. You have Jonathan Mosley. You have Brad Geyer. These are some of the lawyers that we are collaborating with on a regular basis. We have a unified and a shared vision, and a unified and a shared approach. The thing is, with lawyers, just like any other profession in any other walk in life, there's diversity of opinion. You have people in the legal community that see Joe McBride on TV or Tucker Carlson or Newsmax on CNN, whatever, and they think, what is that guy doing? He shouldn't be doing that. I don't like what Joe McBride is doing. I don't like his philosophy. He's too aggressive. He's too this, he's too that. I don't want to be associated with that. And to those people, I say, God bless you. Good luck with your own strategy. I don't, you don't have to approve everything that I'm doing. That's okay. I wish you well with your clients. There are other people who say, hey, listen, I think what that guy is doing is awesome. I think that what his team is doing is super important. They've got courage. They've got guts. They're intelligent. They're going to go out there and they're going to make things happen. And I want to associate with that. Early on, when I first stepped out, people were hesitant to really get involved in terms of how aggressive of an approach that we've been taking. But as of the past several weeks, in the past month and a half or so, many more lawyers have been saying, hey, we like what you're doing. We feel safe to come out now, and we want to fight back as well. So amongst the legal community, there are two factions, but our faction seems to be growing, and that gives me hope, because the more people who agree with this style and this approach, this aggressive approach, the more January 6ers there are who will get adequate representation.
I think that's important, Joe. And we'll just say it right out there. All of you attorneys out there who are listening to this broadcast, if you're a patriot, if you're a Christian, if you don't want to stand by and see people railroaded and have your justice system drugged through the dirt, this is your profession. Stand up for it. Show some strength and join this coalition of attorneys and help save these people. That's a very powerful thing that you could do as a group. Joe, we're looking at some pretty bad sentences coming out of folks that are getting pretty poor recommendations from their state provided counsel. And in many cases, I would go, Jake would be the worst case I've seen, where the judge overrides most sentencing guidelines and even hands out a stiffer penalty than what the prosecution asked for. What kind of, what kind of recourse are these individuals going to have when it turns out that their defense counsels have actually been biased government employees and not true legal representatives as they're supposed to be? Are these guys truly doomed, having taken their plea? And what happens to the folks that are looking at this now?
There is an appellate process. I know Jake actually had, so we're talking about the QAnon and Shaman, right?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Angeli, and he had a private counsel, actually. So there are members of the private bar and there are members of the public defenders who shouldn't be taking these cases. I was a public defender for 5 years, right? That's how I made my bones. That's how I started. People come to the public defense profession for good reasons, for noble reasons. But there are times where people have cases that they shouldn't be working on. I knew public defenders when I worked as one in Manhattan who were like, listen, I do these kinds of cases, but if I have a rape case, I just not something that I'm comfortable with. Other people are like, if I have a terrorism case, it's not something that I'm comfortable with. That's okay. You should say that. You should say, hey, listen, this is not something that I'm comfortable with doing. My own personal biases, my own personal fears and views, or whatever they are, affect me to the extent where I cannot adequately represent this person. There is nothing wrong with saying that. But despite that reality, some of these people have taken cases or been assigned cases or have chosen not to recuse themselves in cases where they should have. Now, you see people rolling over and taking deals that maybe are very unfair to them. And the question is, are they entitled to appeal? Some of these people waive their appeals. That's a threshold that the appellate attorney will have to cross and overcome. Other people maybe generally you're entitled to an appeal by right, but if you waive it, there's a kind of a procedural conflict unless you can come up with a reason why you waived it. I wasn't informed. My lawyer misadvised me. Inadequate assistance of ineffective assistance of counsel. Whatever it's going to be. Will these cases be overruled on appeal? These plea deals, I don't feel great about them. It's possible. But I don't feel great. I think the battle needs to take place beforehand and not afterwards. I believe that, that's really the best way to answer that question.
So we've seen some pretty harsh sentences handed out, and we've seen the prosecutorial folks just really going for the hammer. for, in some cases, things that appear to be nothing more than misdemeanor charges. I understand the vehemence behind the prosecution's case is that this was an assault on the country. I certainly don't believe that, and I don't think many people who are listening to this broadcast today will believe that. But do you think the sentences that are being handed out are commensurate with the crimes that you're seeing?
Absolutely not. These sentences are terrible. I mean, Jake walked into the Senate chamber, wrote something on a piece of paper, took a few pictures, interacted peacefully with the staff, the Capitol Police, and he left. When you contrast that with the Code Pink protesters that have been there, people who've showed up and protested Kavanaugh's hearings and whatever, a confirmation and whatever else, you see a long history of people showing up to the Capitol to protest because that's where you go to protest. Oftentimes those doors are breached. People come into, they enter into sessions and they say this or say that and they're thrown out. Sometimes they do a day in jail. Most of the times they're written a $50 ticket and they're sent on their way. But because this is January 6th, and because this is being framed by the media and by the federal government as an insurrection, despite the fact that no one's been charged with insurrection, these people are getting banged over the head. So do I think that Jake should have been sentenced to 41 months in prison for what he did? Absolutely not. That's a horrific sentence.
We're seeing an extension, I think, of the Capitol's authority beyond the District of Columbia. Here in Tampa, Florida, we've had an individual attempt to open a field office of the Capitol Police, and the intent is to use it as a southeastern pivot to hunt down additional January 6ers and to tap into the focal centers, I guess the synergy centers of law enforcement. And we've protested here in Florida and asked the governor to politely ask these guys to go back home and take their authority where it belongs. But we continue to see, as recently as yesterday, people being hunted down by the FBI using these same horrific and frankly draconian stormtrooper methods. You're bursting into people's houses, throwing flashbangs at children and wives and making them kneel in their yards, handcuffed in the cold in the dead of night. This type of thing that we would expect to see in China or Russia, and yet maybe North Korea, and yet here it is in the United States of America. What is this doing to our system of justice and to the Americans' willingness to partake of justice from a system that it obviously is no longer fair?
It's a good question. I can give you two answers. I can give you the legal answer, and I can give you the legal answer plus what I believe to be the spiritual component of it. I mean, you choose. Which answer do you want?
I think the synergistic one, the one with the spiritual, because let's face it, this is a spiritual fight for many of us. Some of I will put myself in the category, have been asleep too long and trusted our government to be the kind and caring thing that we want it to be, and have suddenly awakened to find that we're the stepchild and we're being locked in the closet. I'm very concerned about that. I think most of the American public is, and I feel that it is a spiritual battle for me, as it sounds like it is for you.
Sure, it is. It is. Capitol Police aren't subject to FOIA request. The same remedies that the public and lawyers have to go after information with regular police, rank and file police, even the FBI, are different when it comes to the Capitol Police. Capitol Police are technically under the jurisdiction of Congress, and it makes it's a unfortunate expansion of police power. They have no business being in Florida. They have no business spreading out into these other states. It is a gross attempt to do away with state police forces that are run locally and through the governor and so on and so forth. They're doing it so as to create a unilateral policing system that comes from the dictatorship of the federal government in order to abolish state policing power and state rights. They want, not only do they want a unified one sort of unilateral police force in the United States, it's ultimately one that they want for the entire world. Let's face it, We have an administration that does not care about the American citizen. It is more concerned with its allegiance and its relationships in Saudi Arabia and in Beijing than it is with its citizens of Tampa, Florida, and Seattle, Washington, in New York, in Chicago, and all over middle America. What am I saying here? I'm saying that this is it's an unjustifiable attempt to grab power by the federal government. It's an unreasonable intrusion via the Capitol Police Force into the lives and spaces of private American citizens that is completely out of its jurisdiction. They're doing that to set the stage for something far more worse and for far more nefarious, which is eventually the abolishment of our constitutional rights, the bowing to a one world government that is not loyal to the United States of America. And what you are looking at spiritually right now is the beginning of the tribulation period. Make no mistake about it. This period was spoken about in scripture a long time ago. We are living in that period right now. People need to wake up and they need to smell the coffee. And if they haven't read the book of Revelation, they should read it today, in particular, Revelation chapter 11, chapter 12, and chapter 13. They should read it immediately because that is the time period that we are living in. Now, that is not a foregone conclusion, but what I can say is this. Yes, you have lawyers like me who are willing to put their neck out, and you have some other good people who are around the country who are willing to participate in the fight. But I speak to every one of you who are watching this show right now, especially the good moms and women at home who live these lives that are just good lives. You take care of your family, you take care of your children, you're a homemaker, you go to work, whatever it is. You are good women. You are holy women. You live lives that are probably much better on a normal basis than us men live our lives. We need your prayers. We need your prayers on a regular basis because we cannot get, and the men too, of course, but we cannot go out and win this fight and win this battle unless you storm the capital of heaven with prayers for us. We need God's grace. We need the power of Christ. We need the armies of heaven to back us in this fight against the forces of evil and the forces of Lucifer. And if we don't get it, we're gonna lose. We don't have to lose, but we're gonna lose. So please, more important than anything else, pray for us and pray for victory in this fight because this is what we're going through.
What's next in this fight, Joe? We're all kind of engaged. Many of us are out here in different groups attempting to send money and support the J6ers while they're incarcerated. You and the other attorneys are working to try them, free them so they don't need this type of support. We're now reaching out to families who are being probably hit the worst. If the family stories of these J6ers is heartbreaking. They're losing their homes, they're losing their cars, they're not only their loved ones, but without their means of support, their businesses are crashing. It is an assault, not just on a J6er, but on their entire family structure and all their friends as well. So what's next in this for you guys as you go forward? Are you going to attempt in any way to expand your team if other attorneys come forward?
Of course, we're going to attempt that. In order for us to do that, it's going to come down to finances, right? So you have different organizations that are out there. I am associated with Patriot Freedom Project. I know there are other ones that are out there as well. I also have on my website a list of January 6th defendants that I'm representing. Each one of these people have a give, send, go. So if you want to give to an individual's give, send, go, an individual's defendant's give, send, go, you can find their page. My defendants, you can find their pages at my website, which is McBrideLawNYC.com. Patriot Freedom Project is a good remedy as well. StopHate.com is another one where you can go and you can find multiple places to donate to January 6th defendants. There's a list of all their gifts and goes right there. But I have been working with Cynthia Hughes at Patriot Freedom Project, who has been helping many families since Jump Street. She's helped to pay the bills, the lights, the birthday gifts, whatever it is for families who, let's face it, the husbands have been taken out of the home. For lots of families, these are the breadwinners and they're suffering. So if you want to give there and to that cause, that's good. If you want to give to the legal fund there, that's good as well. I know Cynthia has personally hired 5 or 6 lawyers in the past month to put on other cases, which is an honorable and a great thing. Now, I want to say something about the January 6 funds that are out there. There seems to be a bit of conflict internally within the community about this, and there shouldn't be. I'd ask for peace between all the January 6 families, to put your egos aside, to put bravado aside, and to truly, if you want to contribute in any way, then contribute to a fund. If you want to contribute with your time, contribute to a time. If you want to contribute with your prayers, contribute with your prayers. Please don't fight amongst each other. And that's what the enemy wants. The enemy wants to divide and conquer. And so please don't do that. So again, McBrideLawNYC.com for my people. StopHate.com is another good place to go. Patriot Freedom Project is the organization that I have been partnered with for the past few months with regard to raising funds for legal funds as well.
That's great, Joseph, and thank you. That's exactly what I was going to ask you, is to give me the websites. And I'd also like to mention the patriotmailproject.com.
Yes.
This is where I and my wife have been involved in writing and communicating with the J6ers. They gain a lot of support from hearing from the public and from hearing that the public is praying and caring for them. On the Patriot Mail Project, you'll find a way to reach out and communicate with these prisoners, and through that also to help them and go to their Send Go fund. So
And you're working with Marie Goodwin there, right?
absolutely, with Marie Goodwin.
Yeah, Marie Goodwin is a good woman. She's a holy woman. She's got a good heart, and she does a lot of good work. She's in this for very personal reasons. And if there's any way that you can support her work as well, I strongly encourage it.
Very great. Yeah, and we are now this period, we are collecting gifts and funds for the children of the J6ers for Christmas. So anybody who will go to the Patriot Mail Project, they can certainly have an opportunity to participate in that and help those kids get through this holiday when they're missing their parent. Joseph, I can't thank you enough for your time. I know you're on a very tight schedule. This has been an incredible interview, and you've answered some very important questions that I think are on a lot of people's minds, and maybe they aren't, and they should be. So with that, I'd like to encourage everybody to support Joseph's website and the work that he's doing for the J6ers, and get involved yourself. Reach out, find a person to help, send some money, write a sign, stand on the corner, do something for America. Joseph, thank you very much. And from the J6 News Channel, goodbye.
God bless you.